In this episode, we talk about how the US had played a major role in India ramping up its oil imports from Russia. We also talk about the CBSE introducing open book assessment for Class 9 from the next academic session. But we begin today by talking about the allegation of election fraud leveled by Rahul Gandhi. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda, and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Earlier this month, leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi had said that the Congress party had an atom bomb of proof that the Election Commission was stealing votes for the BJP.
हमने कहा देखो अब इलेक्शन कमीशन तो मदद नहीं कर रहा है तो थोड़ी ग्रैन्युलैरिटी में जाना है, गहराई में जाना है, तो हमने अपना ही इन्वेस्टिगेशन करवाया. उसमें 6 महीने लगे और जो हमें मिला है वो एटम बॉम्ब है. मतलब एटम बॉम्ब है, फटेगा तो आप इलेक्शन कमीशन आपको दिखेगा नहीं हिंदुस्तान में.
And then more than a week after making this statement, he held a press conference accusing the commission of colluding with the BJP in a massive fraud during the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. During this media address, he mainly focused on the Mahadevapura constituency in Bangalore, alleging that out of 6.5 lakh total votes, over 1 lakh votes were stolen.
We found that 1,250,000 votes were stolen. And we're going to tell you how. What is the total number in the assembly? Total number of votes? So out of 6,50,000 total votes in the assembly of Mahadevapura, 1,250,000 votes were stolen.
Gandhi said the commission added thousands of fake voters to the rolls and called for a detailed investigation into the discrepancies in Mahadevapura, which is a part of the Bangalore Central Lok Sabha seat. To understand more about these allegations and their implications, we speak to the Indian Express's Asad Rehman. Asad, for those who might not have seen that press conference, tell us what were the main highlights and what were the main allegations made by Rahul Gandhi?
So last week, Lok Sabha leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi, he held a press conference and he said that there was vote theft in the Lok Sabha elections that were held last year, which helped the BJP come to power at the center. Now, his allegations are based on an analysis of voter lists that the Congress party has conducted on a seat in Karnataka during the Lok Sabha elections. Now, he's saying that a total of 1 lakh votes were stolen and that these votes were stolen in different ways on this one particular seat. Now, his allegation is also that the EC has not been giving the Congress party electoral rolls in a digital format which the Congress can analyze and then find out where all there are such irregularities. Now, interestingly, the EC has made some changes to laws regarding conduct of elections, and these laws also include destroying CCTV footage of polling booths after a certain period of time. Now, Rahul's allegation is that this is all part of a larger conspiracy by the Election Commission of India, its officials and the BJP to help the party in power come back to power in the last Lok Sabha elections. So that's largely his allegation, and he's alleged that because the Congress was not given machine readable digital data of electoral rolls, they had to go through physical copies of the electoral rolls on this one seat, which he's considering as the sample seat for a larger issue. Now, he's saying that on this one seat, 1,250,000 votes were stolen, and these votes have been stolen by the EC in collusion with the BJP during the Lok Sabha elections, and that this has been done across the country is one of his allegations.
And what proof did Rahul Gandhi say he has? How was he backing his claims?
So he said that in this one assembly segment in Bangalore Central. So let me clarify that Bangalore Central is a Lok Sabha constituency. There are a total of 8 assembly segments that fall under this one Lok Sabha constituency. So Rahul Gandhi says that of one assembly segment, the Congress conducted this analysis or this study of the electoral roll, which is Mahadevapura. Rahul Gandhi claims that out of the 8 assembly segments in Bangalore Central, the Congress was leading in 7 but lost in 1, which was Mahadevapura. Now, because of its loss in one assembly segment, Rahul Gandhi claims that they lost the seat because the number of voters on this one assembly segment is considerably high as compared to other assembly segments. So then he has gone in great detail explaining how these votes were allegedly stolen by the Election Commission to help the BJP. So he said that there are 5 ways through which this alleged vote chori has happened. 1, duplicate voter. 2, fake and invalid addresses.
Fake addresses. Zoom in. House number 0. No, you're laughing. There are thousands and thousands of these people. No address, house number 0. House number 0. House number 0. 0. House number 0. Father's name, ILSDHFHUG. थोड़े और फादर्स नेम दिखाओ, ये बड़े इंटरेस्टिंग नाम है इनके. DFOIGOIDF फादर्स नेम. नहीं, आप हंस रहे हो भैया, पूरा सिस्टम उड़ा दिया है, चोरी हो रही है.
3, bulk voters in one address, and 4, invalid photos, and 5, through the misuse of Form 6. So these are the 5 ways that he's listed out, claiming that these are the 5 ways which are being used by the EC and the BJP to steal votes in this particular seat.
And Asad, when he claims that these votes were stolen, what exactly does he mean by that? How does he claim this happened?
Now, he claims that the first way that votes are stolen is duplicate voters. Now, he says that there are people who have votes in 4 different places. Like, he gave the example of someone named Aditya Srivastav with his electoral roll entry and details. He said that the first way he's saying is duplicate voters, and he gives this example of Aditya Srivastav, who he says has votes in 4 different places. He has votes in UP, he has votes in Karnataka, he has vote in Maharashtra as well, in different cities of UP, Karnataka and Maharashtra. Now, through duplicate voters, Rahul Gandhi is alleging that 11,965 votes were stolen. So he's saying that there is one person, but that one person has several votes, and that's why that one person is voting in different places and has cast the votes in favor of the BJP, and with the help of the Election Commission of India creating these bogus votes. Now, he's not saying that this specific person has done it or not. He's saying that those votes might be cast by someone else, or what the EC has done internally is something that he's also not sure about. But he's saying that these 11,965 duplicate voters have played a big role in this one assembly segment, which he says is a symptom of the larger problem.
Okay, so one way he says this happened was through duplicate votes. What were the other ways that he talked about?
So the second way in which he's alleging vote theft is fake and invalid addresses, which he claims there are 40,009 such voters in this one assembly segment, Mahadevapura, who've used fake and invalid addresses in their electoral rolls. The electoral roll have fake and invalid addresses. So he's given details where he's shown some voter cards or shown the electoral roll of this specific assembly segment where the address says 0000 or it is gibberish like XYZ or JKLMNO. So just letters. So that's what he's claiming. And he's saying that 40,000 votes have been stolen like this, 40,009. The third way is bulk voters in a single address. So there he's claiming that there are multiple people, like more than one address can have. Say for example, he's saying that there is a commercial establishment in Mahadevapura where there are 80 voters are listed there. Now he says when we went to that specific address, we couldn't find a single voter of those who had that address in the electoral roll. Then And he claims that 10,452 votes were stolen in this way, which is bulk voters in a single address. Now, he's also claimed that there is an address where there's just one room house and that there are 60 voters or 70 voters who are addressed in that one address. So he's saying that these votes are being unlawfully cast in favor of the BJP with the help of the ECI. Now, coming to the fourth way of this alleged vote chori, he's saying that the electoral rolls have many invalid photos. He's saying either the photo is too small or the photo is not visible or there is no photo at all. And there are 4,132 such instances where invalid photos have been used. So this is largely his allegation regarding photographs on the electoral roll, which also appears in our voter ID card if you look at it.
These are of three types. Either an address that doesn't exist, you go look for it, it's not there. Or the address is 0, house number 0 or street number 0. Or then the address cannot be verified. These are 40,000 voters. Okay. Next, here is house number 35. 80 voters live in this house. We sent people to check. They got beaten up. These 80 people live in this house. It's a single room house.
Then the last way he's claiming in which votes are stolen is the misuse of Form 6, which is a form which is used in cases of registration of new voters or first time voters. He's saying 33,692 votes were stolen through the misuse of Form 6, which is used for first time voters to register in elections. So he gave some examples. He said that there are people who are 80-year-old and who have voted in 3 different polling booths or 4 different polling booths over the last election, and the state election before that. So his claim is that this Form 6 is being misused by the EC to create fake voters to cast votes in favor of the BJP.
There's a lady called Shakun Rani, 70-year-old. Zoom out. That's her. And you see a very interesting thing here. She appears twice on the voter list. She comes in using Form 6. Zoom into her name the first time. Zoom in there. Here, first name, Shakun, surname, Rani. Right? Now look at her picture. That's a picture. Now go to the other picture. Look at the picture. So this is essentially a zoomed in picture that they've taken. And this is now suddenly a new voter. Go back. Now, she has no surname, but her first name is Shakun Rani. Right? Go back. But what's really interesting here, now she uses this form twice. She uses it first on the 13/9/23, and then she does it again 31/10/23. So she becomes a voter twice. And then the beautiful thing is, show us the next slide, she actually votes twice.
And Asad, have we ever seen an opposition party make such an allegation of this scale before?
I don't think we've had allegations over manipulation of elections in the past. Indira Gandhi was accused of that, and that's what led to the emergency eventually. But I don't think in the Indian democracy such an allegation of widespread vote theft have happened in the past. And this has to be the first time that an opposition party has come out which claims that it has evidence of this vote theft and which is giving out details and is going into great details. And let's not forget that this is not the first time that Lok Sabha leader of opposition, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi is speaking about this. He has been saying that the BJP and the EC is colluding. He made a set of allegations in the Maharashtra elections where he claimed that the number of voters that were added in the Maharashtra just before the Maharashtra assembly elections and just after the Lok Sabha elections was more than the population of the state itself, and he's made some very serious allegations in Maharashtra also. Then in Haryana also the Congress had claimed that there were some issues with the battery of the EVMs. So over the last 10 years or over the last few years, we've been seeing that opposition parties have been raising doubts over the EVMs, which are the electronic voting machines, the election apparatus. We've seen in UP, we've seen in other states that the Samajwadi Party, other opposition parties have leveled allegations against the EC of favoring the BJP. But such a presentation, so much detail, so many allegations, and the allegation of this being just the symptom and that there is a larger problem in the country, that the BJP and the EC is colluding to help the party in power stay in power. This is not very common and has not happened over the years.
And have there been any reactions from the Election Commission regarding these claims?
So, first reaction that came from the Election Commission was when Rahul Gandhi was addressing this press conference in Delhi. The Karnataka Chief Election Officer wrote to Rahul Gandhi saying that please submit these claims that you're making under oath. So basically saying that you have to submit an affidavit with all the evidence that you're claiming and all the claims that you're making. You should send it to us in the form of an undersigned. So Rahul was asked this question during the press conference because this reaction had come right then, and Rahul said that whatever he's saying during the press conference is under oath, and he's a politician. His word to the people is always under oath. That was his claim. Now the EC has since come out with certain clarifications, but nothing very major has come out from the EC so far, and which has helped Rahul Gandhi, further double down on his claims. He's saying that, this is what I said, that they're telling me to give these things under oath, but they're not saying that I'm wrong, which means that I'm telling the truth. Now, these are his words. And Rahul Gandhi has given in great detail. So I think even if the EC has to come out with a response, it should do it soon because, these are questions of larger democratic principles. These are questions of elections being, he's directly saying that elections are being stolen. He's not mincing his words at all. So these are things that the opposition is going to hold a march to the Election Commission of India office on Monday. Now, against the special intensive revision, and I'm sure Rahul Gandhi is going to, mention these allegations as well when the march happens.
And Asad, what about the political reactions? What have we heard from the ruling party about this?
The ruling party has rubbished his claims. They've said that, these are false conjectures and that Rahul's not happy that he's not being able to win elections and that's why he's doing this. But the study that Rahul Gandhi has conducted over 6 months, for anyone else to conduct it, it will again take a long period of time because if there are no digital electoral rolls available, then for someone to counter his allegation also it takes a lot of time, because you have to do the same process again. So the BJP has come out and said that Rahul Gandhi is bitter for losing elections. They've criticized him for going after an autonomous democratic body. But apart from that, I think the BJP hasn't categorically, come out against his claims so far.
And lastly, Asad, like you said, these allegations come at a time when the Election Commission has faced criticism from other opposition parties and when questions about its independence have been raised. What do you think these allegations do to its credibility and how do they affect voter confidence?
I think, even during last year's Lok Sabha elections while I was traveling, there were questions people asked about, whether these elections are fair or not, because these opposition parties have not started talking about the EC being unfair now. They've been doing it for years. And it's been 2 decades of the BJP in power at the center, and they have several state governments as well, and states people have these opposition parties have been repeating this a lot that, the EC is compromised, the system is compromised, police is used. We saw in UP that Akhilesh Yadav said that the police is being misused to manipulate elections, to suppress the party's supporters from going out to vote, stopping people from voting. So these are allegations and definitely, there has to be some doubt an average voter is probably started having already, and if not, then with these allegations, and we're seeing that the press conference is being shared widely on social media, Rahul Gandhi's claims are being shared widely on social media. So somehow if it's already been repeated a lot of times, and now he is the leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi. So if he comes out at a press conference, speaks for more than an hour, gives out presentations with slides, data and everything, then definitely I think it is going to have an impact on voter confidence.
And next, we shift our focus to the tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump. After criticizing India for continuing to import Russian oil, last week Trump threatened to impose an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods, raising the total to 50%. With this threat, he hopes to secure a better trade deal with India and push Russia to end its war against Ukraine. So, two birds with one giant tariff. But here it's worth noting that the US itself played a major role in India ramping up oil imports from Russia. The same imports for which New Delhi is now being criticized by Trump and his administration. So, to discuss in what way the US administration had done so, my colleague Shashank Bhargav speaks to the Indian Express's Sukalp Sharma.
Sukalp, remind us, when exactly was this? When did India ramp up its oil exports from Russia, and how was the US involved in that?
So, Shashank, what happened was that this was immediately after Russia invaded Ukraine, which was, I believe, February 24th, 2022. So, end of February. At that time, oil prices in the immediate aftermath, they had shot up. They had gone into triple digits, crossed $100 a barrel. And that was also a period when the world was, the global economy was coming out of COVID. So there was demand for energy that had come up significantly. So there was a lot of demand. And Russia being one of the biggest oil producers and oil exporters globally, the beginning of the war, the invasion itself had led to oil prices jumping significantly. What followed immediately thereafter was that the Western powers, Europe, the US, they had to take a political stand, right, against Putin, against Russia. So they went ahead and they decided that they are going to wean off Russian oil and Russian energy, and they're not going to buy to the extent possible. Of course, the Europeans still buy in some way or the other. They gave certain exemptions to, some pipelines, some energy flows. They still happen, but broadly, the Western powers decided that they are not going to buy Russian oil.
And was this Western bloc, was it also trying to make countries like India do the same?
Right. So at some level, certain sections within the West, they would frown upon countries that were still engaging in trade with Russia, particularly energy trade. But at a realpolitik level or at a diplomatic level, sometimes openly and sometimes discreetly, there was a clear understanding that given the energy supply scenario during that period, it was undesirable from a global economic perspective, even for the Western economies, to not have Russian oil in the market. Because, like I said, being one of the biggest oil producers and exporters globally, if Russia is not able to sell its oil, then international oil prices would shoot up, because then you'll have too many people chasing a limited set of barrels that are produced by other major oil producers, be it in West Asia, Africa, North and South America.
Right, and everyone rightly is very sensitive about oil prices, because once the price of oil goes up, it increases the price of almost everything.
Right. It has a huge inflationary impact. And let us remember again that this was the spring of 2022. The world was coming out of COVID. There was demand. There were very real fears about the economic outlook, be it in the West, be it anywhere in the world, and particularly in the West at that time. So with the Joe Biden administration, it was pretty clear to them that Russian oil going off the market is not really an option that the global economy or the American economy could afford at the time. So it was very clear to the Americans. It was also very clear, as far as my understanding goes, to the Europeans, that Russian oil has to flow. They cannot buy it because of very obvious moral, ethical grounds. They had to stand with Ukraine. I mean, their region, Ukraine, was an ally. They had to stand against Russia. They couldn't have really bought Russian energy, but they did want Russian energy to flow. And that is where, the role of countries like India comes in.
So it made diplomatic sense for them not to buy oil from Russia, but from a global economic perspective,
it was important that Russian oil continued to flow. And that's where India came in. From their perspective, they believed that energy being the biggest source of revenue from exports for the Russian economy, they did not obviously want a lot of money to flow into Russia and from there into the war in Ukraine. So what they decided, it was the G7 countries and a couple of another allies of theirs and Europe, that they decided that they are going to impose a price cap of $60 per barrel. And that, so the idea was that So as long as you are buying oil under $60 per barrel, it was kosher. It was something that, you could even avail European shipping and insurance services to buy oil at that level. So that was the mechanism that they had come up with, that, even if oil prices are at $90 per barrel or $100 per barrel, Russia should not get more than $60 per barrel. So let's limit their revenue, but let's keep the oil flowing.
And when did India increase its Russian oil purchase? Because earlier it wasn't that much, right? It was about 2%?
Less than that. Actually, even 2% is something, when you look at monthly oil import data for maybe January of 2022 or maybe February of 2022, maybe that kind of a number comes. But even before that, it would sometimes be no imports at all in a given month, or maybe just, very, very few cargoes in a year. The reason was, again, very clear, because the markets were fairly well established. India would buy a bulk of its crude oil from West Asia, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, UAE, etc. A bit from Africa, Nigeria and all. Then again, a bit from South America. We'd been buying oil from the US as well. And Russia would sell a lot of its oil in the Western markets. I mean, a lot of it would go to Europe and into other regions. But when Europe goes offline for Russian oil, then they started offering discounts on their oil. And that's where our refiners came in.
Right, and India obviously has huge energy needs. It is the world's third largest consumer of crude oil, and over 85% of that is imported. So I suppose we really saw value in those discounts.
Right. March 2022 onwards, Feb 2022, the invasion happened. March 2022 onwards, we start seeing an increase in monthly volumes of Russian oil coming into India. And it gradually, then it was like an upward trajectory from there. I think clearly by the middle of 2023, Russia had established itself as the biggest source of crude oil for India, displacing, traditional suppliers like Iraq, which was number one, became number two. Saudi Arabia, which was number two in terms of, the pecking order of suppliers, oil suppliers to India, had become number three. UAE moved to number four. The US moved to number five.
And one of the allegations that Trump has been making is that after getting this discounted crude oil, India was selling it to European countries. Was that really the case?
So let's be very clear. No Indian refiner is allowed, or even any oil producer in India is, really selling oil outside. That, because it's very clear, if I'm 88% import dependent, right? Why will I sell that commodity overseas? So what actually Trump means, and, giving him the benefit of the doubt, but this is what we know for sure. What happens is that India has a refining capacity of over 250 million, which roughly translates to, I think, a little over 5 million barrels a day. That's our refining capacity, but our consumption is lower, slightly lower than that. So there is a small volume that of not oil, but petroleum products and fuels that are derived from oil after refining. A part of what is produced in India is exported. So the link is that somehow Russian oil is reaching Europe. I think it's a little far-fetched argument, because frankly, if that was such a big problem, then why did Europe allow that? The products or the refined fuel, be it diesel or be it aviation turbine fuel, going from Indian refiners to Europe in whatever volumes, it wasn't being smuggled into Europe, right? It was going through legal channels. It was open, transparent trade. And if Europe had a problem with it, then why did they not stop then? Which, by the way, they are going to do now. Last month, they just announced that, from January 2026, they are not going to buy any petroleum products or fuels derived from Russian oil. So they are doing it now. But for the past 3 years, they were happy taking it.
And all this, of course, happened under the Biden administration. Was there an explicit acknowledgement of this? Did they actually come out and say it?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'll take you back to an event that happened here in Delhi, I think at the Ananta Center, where two officials of the Biden administration who had come to India and who were going to, I think, various other countries as well to explain their position on the war in Ukraine. And because they wanted to ensure that the price cap mechanism is enforced very well. And by the way, let me be very clear, India is not a signatory to the price cap. So it's not binding on India. The only reason that, you would say that India would comply with it is you do not want to be at the risk of attracting secondary sanctions from the US. So those officials, I remember I was at that event and there were a lot of other senior journalists and a lot of people from the industry as well. They were categorical in saying that we have never asked India to stop buying Russian oil. We have never asked India to cut down on Russian oil volumes, and we want to give Putin only bad options. And another interesting point that I'd like to tell you here is that, and one of them clarified in response to a question, that from a sanctions perspective and from a technical standpoint, Russian oil refined into petroleum products and fuels, after being refined in a third country, ceases to be Russian oil. So from a sanctions perspective, this entire argument that the diesel or the jet fuel being supplied by Indian refiners to Europe is of Russian origin, well, you have it from the people who actually devised that sanction policy, that they were very clear that for them, from a technical standpoint and from a sanctions perspective, it ceased to be Russian oil. It would be treated as India's exports to any geography and not something that was being transshipped via India.
And in the end, we talk about the CBSE, the Central Board of Secondary Education, which has now approved the introduction of open book assessments for Class 9 from the next academic session. This decision was taken after a pilot study showed that teachers support this idea. According to a report by the Indian Express's Abhinaya Harigovind, the proposal, which was cleared by the CBSE's governing body in June, involves adding open book assessments to 3 written exams each term for core subjects like languages, mathematics, science and social science. The move aligns with the National Curriculum Framework for School Education 2023, which draws from the National Education Policy 2020. Now, according to this framework, open book tests allow students to use resources such as textbooks and notes while answering questions, shifting the focus from memorization to applying and synthesizing information in various contexts. The pilot study conducted for classes 9 to 12 looked at completion time and stakeholder perceptions. It found that students' scores ranged from 12% to 47%, showing that they struggled to use resources well and understand interdisciplinary ideas. Teachers, however, were optimistic about such tests, seeing their potential to encourage critical thinking. Experts say that while open book assessments are not necessarily easier than traditional exams, they are designed to test deeper understanding rather than recall. Now, this shift will require capacity building in schools. Although this framework will guide schools in adopting open book tests for internal assessments in Class 9, it will not be mandatory. This initiative aims to reduce exam stress, encourage real-world application of knowledge, and promote competency-based learning. Abhinaya writes that this is actually not CBSE's first attempt at open book testing. In 2014, the board introduced an open book text-based assessment for Class 9 and Class 11. Giving students reference material months in advance. However, the system was discontinued in 2017 with the board saying that it hadn't helped build critical abilities among students. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank Bhargav and me, Niharika Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.